katoa, e uria hau no ngā puhi, me Ngāti Kuri, me Ngāti Pātua, ko Sonia Mehana te runga, Māori ora. Kia ora, my name is Sonia Mehana. I share this image here of my whenua back home. I come from Auckland in New Zealand, proudly from Hokianga. My tribes are Ngāti Pātua, Ngā Puhi and Ngāti Kuri. And I have the privilege of wrapping up our kōrero for the Urupapau Taiao, following our rangatira, Professor Himatoa McNeil, and my tuakana, Kathleen Fruin. I'm the pepe kai rangahau of our little death gang. Official name pending. I'm the baby researcher, so I'm about just over a year into this space, and it's been an honour. So my presentation is going to be on the cost of dying from a Te Ao Māori perspective. So my research at the moment is really focused on two parts. We're looking at kind of affordability, trying to make death affordable. The other area we're looking at, which has been a really exciting space, is the business opportunities that are arising within this space. From a Māori perspective, it's really hard to look at it as a business, but essentially it is, but there's some really cool things that are coming up in this space. I'm really early in this research, so I'm going to share some of the early research findings at the end and a few references and acknowledgements. So this whakatauki really resonates with the Urupapau Taiao space. He moana puki puki e kikinga e te waka, a rough ocean can be overcome by the canoe. As you would have heard from Himatoa and Kathleen before, and even in the documentary, there's such a challenging space that we're navigating at the moment. When we're thinking about the impact on Papatūānuku, thinking about our environment, how toxic our colonised practices have been, and also thinking about the political challenges we are facing back home in Aotearoa New Zealand, and specifically for me in this space. I feel like not just in New Zealand but around the world we're really facing challenging times in the economy right now. The cost of living is difficult, and you would have heard in the document, which I think was filmed a while ago, talking about the costs of tangi have through the roof at the moment. So when we're talking about overcoming those challenges, and the waka being the research that we're coming through, and getting everybody on this kaupapa that we're on at the moment. So I'll start with affordability. So tangihanga and unveiling costs remain an issue for our whānau back home, and specifically Māori is the area that I'm focused on. If we look at tangihanga and the costs associated to tangihanga, we're thinking about coffins that are hitting the thousands right now. And as much as you can plan for it, it's very difficult sometimes to be able to come up with that money. And in reality, not all of our whānau can afford insurance. So that's like one of the first main costs that we have. In tangihanga, in our practice, the other part that we need to think about is when our whānau come together, we have a hākari as well. And those kai costs are humongous. If we're thinking about the marae, so this here is an image from Kōtere's tangi. And you can see the people that will come. Kat talked about the tangi of our Māori king, Kini Tuheitia. There were thousands that came to pay their respects. Kai is essential in this space. We're talking about a tapu space when we talk about tangihanga. It is tapu. we use kai, food, to whakanoa, to lift that tapu. So you can't bring people through without being able to offer kai. So kai creates a huge cost for us in these spaces as well, and that applies to unveiling spaces too. So that's one big cost. Another cost that has kind of come up, and it's a really colonised, come through colonisation, is funeral director costs. We wouldn't have had, like, I don't think our ancestors would have had a funeral director. And as mentioned in the documentary as well, embalming is an illegal requirement. And I don't actually think a lot of people know that it's not a legal requirement. Embalming is used to protect the living. That's a practice that we use to protect the living because it's hard, and our colonised minds don't know how to see our tupāpaku in their decomposing states. So that's why we use embalming. But a lot of our people wouldn't know. And if I'm honest, a lot of our people don't know outside of the tangihanga space what we need to do when someone passes. So then we call the funeral director. So it's a real opportunity for us to look at what our people did before, what our ancestors did. Another area we need to think about in the unveiling is the headstones, which has been talked before as well. Headstones, just like the coffins, can hit the thousands. And that's when you're looking at that stone and is around permanence, but there are other options that are out there as well. What we've heard anecdotally is with the people are maybe starting to, the whānau is starting to take their tupāpaku home first, and sometimes even skipping the marae altogether. When you have a tangihanga at the marae, you're not taking RSVPs, there's not a seating limit. The marae is open for everybody to come and pay their respects. So the whānau receiving have to be ready to put the kai and everything and have to be able to accommodate anybody coming through. So some whānau were choosing to take their tupāpaku, their deceased home instead and laying there. And that kind of limits the cost of those coming through because you kind of see it's a home, you don't know how much they can accommodate, which is kind of difficult because it's really important that we keep those traditions going of tangihanga and keeping them in the marae as well. So with issues, it creates some opportunities. The image I share here is of my koro patu kōhepa, who had a natural burial, and he's in the middle, he's got a kōpaki there as well. We have an opportunity to acknowledge our historical legacies, our cultural norms and traditional economic systems. It's an opportunity for us to understand why our people did what they did and how we can return to those practices. I'm pretty sure our ancestors weren't on the phone for our funeral directors and coffins, but there are some things that they've done that we are trying to revitalise in this space. I found this really interesting when I was doing some research to present in Canada earlier this year about pre-colonial Māori economies being about wealth distribution opposed to wealth accumulation. And I'm not too sure how relevant it is today, but if we can kind of think on that in that area as well, I think it's a real opportunity for us to go, especially whānau Māori and hapu the iwi. So I said earlier I was a pepe kairangahau, a pepe researcher, so I've been really grateful to start kind of an early research at the moment. So the day before we flew out to come here to Brazil, when Hinamato actually did her experimental sites, I invited my mum along, and she just loved it, absolutely fell in love with the kōrero, the space, the kaupapa. The kaupapa spoke to her. At that time, we were looking at unveiling my grandfather, which we hadn't done yet. and it just resonated with her a lot. So I was really grateful to be able to get her on board, get the whānau on board, because that part is essential in this space. Is you can't just decide, actually this is what I want to do. You need to get buy-in from your whānau, hapu, iwi. There are a lot of people involved in these spaces because they're not our spaces. We can be aggressive, and just because we're from there, it's not our space. So I was very lucky. My mama came, she loved it, and then we had to get our whānau on board. Had a lot of kōrero, but they were really into it. So for our baling space, we looked at a natural site for my grandfather. We looked at a natural site for my grandfather. We started that maybe around July this year, getting his site prepared. So now we call him our Gampa. So it's named Our Gampa's Garden. We had to follow the maramataka, which is our Māori calendar back home, making sure all of our practices were on. So on our calendar we have low days, high days, planting days, fishing days, and those are essential to our practices, and just making sure that we're working with the taiao, with our earth, properly and respectfully. So in that, in the middle here is, I don't really know what it's called. It's kind of like a po, but my grandfather is buried in our whenua in Waima, which is from my nanny's side. So he's buried with his wife. He is from Pawaringa. So we went up with a chainsaw on a good maramataka day up to Pawaringa. It's ngahere, a lot of forests, really untouched land up there. Went up with a chainsaw to get some rako, some wood, for this po that we were working on. So it was really important to us that our grandfather had a piece of home with him. So we went out, got the piece of wood. It's very difficult land, we had to kind of get it, but we carried it out. We were guided by a piwaka waka on the correct. My mum was looking for a certain piece of wood that she remembered from her childhood. We couldn't find it. We couldn't find it because we weren't meant to find it. We saw this piwaka waka just going crazy. And I said, come on, show me what you want to show me then. And we just followed it. And it sounds weird, but in our culture, it's just what we do. And so we followed this piwaka waka. It was going crazy, and then it had landed on a tree. This tree had already fallen. In that moment, we realised we weren't looking for a standing tree, we were looking for a fallen tree. And that's important in respect to the land. It landed on a fallen tree. We did our karakia and mihi to the space, the land, and thanked the land for giving us this piece of rako. My sister cut it, first time ever using a chainsaw, came out super clean. Don't know how, but then again, that's how it's meant to happen. So it came out clean. We didn't take a bag in, didn't think about that. So we made a bag out of my mum's jacket and somehow got through. And it's kind of very ngahere, there's no path. You're kind of jumping over bushes, tree trunks, all these things. There's wild hogs in there, just kind of, that's all you can hear. Kind of got through, chucked it on our back, had to figure out how to get out. Again, the piwaka waka's just watching us the whole time, and then ended up guiding us. And I was just like, okay, just show me where to go. Just put my head down because it was so heavy. Kind of got through, and then out of nowhere, came out a completely different exit, but we were back at the car where we were meant to be. And thanked the piwaka waka. And then when we were trying to find a kawa or somebody to work with this piece of wood for us, it was actually really hard to find somebody that was interested in this. Our kaupapa is that it's going to return to the earth. We're not looking for something permanent, but we're looking for something that is going to acknowledge my grandfather and just the space, and we're going to have the garden there as well. So it was really hard to find carvers that were interested in this. Luckily, Kat's brother has been across the kaupapa and he's working under our master carver Wikukingi, and he took on our mahi and we spoke to him about it, and that's why the Piwaka Waka is right in the middle, and then he's also used carvings that we would normally use in the Te Tau Tukaro region as well. And it was a really awesome kōrero, and the whānau really loved that we got a bit of pawaringa in Waima as well. On the side here, so when we went into the unveiling, Hanamato talked earlier about the kai. Luckily, where we're from, we've got the uncle down the road that is going to drop off the home kill. So they brought down, killed a cow, beef, and brought it down and hung it up in the marae for us. So then we had meat there. My other cousin, oh yeah, cool, on the way I'm going to pull in and go diving for us. So we had our seafood as well. So although we don't have the garden yet, so then we still had to go to the supermarket and buy some things, but those are the practices we're talking about in terms of making it more affordable. And then the last image on the side there is our whānau. So the other thing when you're following the maramataka is you also can't choose if it's going to be raining on that day as well. So it was definitely raining when we had to get into the garden. Where I'm from, up north, Hokianga, Waima specifically, you're only allowed in the marae, allowed in the urupa on a Sunday. They've got tikanga rules around going into the urupa, so you're only allowed in on a Sunday. And then trying to plan that to be on a maramataka day is high maramataka day is difficult as well. But we got in there, it was raining, but it was meant to rain, I think. A lot of us follow rain. It means our ancestors are with us, watching us. So I really believed it was meant to rain that day. And a lot of that, when we're sitting in those spaces, over here we're doing our kai prep with the hangi. You've got your hangi line going. You're sharing knowledge. You'll see different generations there. My son's in that line, my mum's in that line, and we're serving our grandfather. So there's a lot of knowledge that is being shared in those spaces as well. For my early findings, just because it's natural, it doesn't mean it's the most affordable option right now. The kōpaki is a lot of skill. So weaving is not just anyone can pick up weaving. It's a skill that, and I think even now, like back in the day, the nannies will look and see if you've got the hands to be able to weave. So it's not that anyone can kind of go in and be like, I'm going to be the weaver or the diver. It's a skill that you have to have. And if someone passes, it's not like they're just going to jump in the back for a couple of hours and put a kōpaki together and weave it together. There's something that we need to think about in terms of whether it's the most affordable option. The kōpaki I talked about earlier for Patu Hōhepa, that was about $5,000. And then with that, she supports the whānau pani and the natural environment space as well. So not the most affordable option, but the second line I've put is iwi and hapu need to learn, upskill and contribute. So when we come to those spaces, with me standing there with my cousins, we're sitting there, what are our skill sets? How do we fill these spaces? I'm the organiser of our whānau, my sister's the kitchen person of our whānau, my cousin's the diver. Right now in our skill set we don't have a carver and we don't have a weaver. So those are the spaces where we need to sit together as a whānau, iwi and hapu, and think about what is it that you contribute in this space and what skills and gaps do we have in our whānau right now. And that would make it more affordable if we had our own weaver and carver. It's an opportunity to revive our traditional practices for our younger ones as well. It's an opportunity for them to learn. To have my son at the back there learning how to shuck oysters was such an honour for me. And lastly, whānau Māori and our Māori communities get to feel empowered. Ngā mihi, I think my Kia ora.
Kia ora.